movement would do the welcome address to you now. Let's give a round of applause to our mayor.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm happy that you received my brief very well. That you are not a program director, but you are a program director. So thank you very much, Mr. Green, our head IGR in the city. Honorable MEC for Economic Development, Environmental Affairs, Honorable Pillay, my comrade, the German Embassy representative, Mr. Christian Kuhn, who's present. Thank you very much for your attendance. The U.S. Consul General Office, Ms. Enlin, Honorable Consulate of Belgium, also present today, Ms. Elaine Pierre Gringo, the management of our city, who are also present today, Ms. Kumesa Tengwa, who's also present, the project manager, municipalities and urban development, the AFD, Ms. Zoe Ramadou, senior manager, coastal stormwater and catchment management, Mr. Geoff Talley, all our distinguished guests present, NGOs that are present today, our partners, delegates, members of the Fourth Estate, good afternoon to all of you. We are greatly honored in the city to host this event, which is part of our broader strategy to mitigate climate change disasters. We'd like to thank all our partners, particularly the C40, which also has been supporting us in the past 4 years in the development and implementation of the Transformative River Management Program, the TRMP. In the spirit of cooperative governance, we'd like to express our gratitude to both the national and provincial government for continuously supporting our efforts to become a climate resilient city. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to indicate that this event takes place after the province and our city experienced devastating floods that resulted in the loss of more than 400 lives, leaving over 40,000 residents displaced and more than 20 billion rands worth of damage to infrastructure. As a city, we continue to work hard to rebuild and restore damaged infrastructure so that our people can regain their dignity and return to normalcy. I'm happy to report to you that over the weekend, we had our Hollywood Bets Durban July, which became one of the biggest and successful events after the lifting of all the lockdown regulations in our country. And the visitors who came in here to our city, they were happy with our hospitality that we displayed, the warmest hospitality, as well as the food that we served them. More than food, the music and entertainment, most of them, they dance as if they had no other time to dance again. Although a number of factors contributed to the extreme levels of destruction, there's no doubt that such events of heavy and sustained rainfall will become more frequent as climate change poses significant risk to the city and the future of its people. The record floods in April are indicative of the increasing climate change challenges that our municipality will face, not only in terms of increasing floods, but also the frequent of droughts, the sea level rise, and the temperature increases. Therefore, for cities like ours, Durban, EThekwini, and many others like us around the world whose population and economy are already vulnerable to these impacts, adaptation is critical. Ladies and gentlemen, we pride ourselves for being a leader in the climate adaptation space with the Durban Climate Change Strategy and Climate Action Plan, providing a framework for the city's mitigation and adaptation priorities across a number of sectors such as health, biodiversity, and water. One of the features that makes Durban adaptation response unique is the city's recognition of the importance of natural environment in helping cities to adapt. Our grasslands help ensure water security, wetlands help to reduce the impacts of flooding, and forests help to stabilize soil and regulate temperatures. To this end, the city has invested significantly in protecting, managing, and restoring important ecosystems through the community ecosystem-based adaptation approach. As a result of this approach, vulnerable and poor communities are given access to work opportunities to manage and maintain our ecosystems, providing both an income and ecosystem protection from climate impacts. Ladies and gentlemen, this program ties in perfectly with our vision of building a social solidarity economy. We are determined to empower communities by enabling them to more active in job creation initiatives and identify more cooperatives that can manage the natural environment effectively. We are also pushing the emerging cooperatives and other organizations to enhance their skills in environmental management so that they have the capacity to address issues affecting their communities at a grassroots level. Program Director, it is important to mention that well-managed ecosystems provide over 4 billion worth of services to our city and its residents annually. As a result, we believe it is critical that we look after this vulnerable natural resource. Rivers are a critical part of this resource because they are the lifeblood of any city in the world, connecting communities, landscapes, and economic activities. These waterways are not only responsible for providing water, but they also help regulate the impact of heavy rains and floods if well managed. Therefore, putting necessary resources in our rivers and catchments must be central to the city's climate adaptation response. The city has also recognized that any climate adaptation intervention must have the welfare of its people at heart. We want to achieve this through the creation of a new economy by creating new jobs in response to climate change challenges and providing new skills for future development in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, the Transformative River Management Program builds on these principles through its focus on improved management of rivers as a community ecosystem-based adaptation response. This initiative can also be used for expanded opportunities in the green economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I must emphasize that this is an ambitious program with a vision to transform not just 7,000 kilometers of the city's rivers and streams as part of building a climate resilient and safe city, but also to extend awareness of this model to other African cities and our own surrounding municipalities. What is exciting is that already there are programs that the city is implementing on the ground, which include the following programs. The Sihlanzimvelo stream cleaning program, which employs local cooperatives to remove invasive alien plants and litter from streams in the high-density urban settlements to reduce culvert blockages, while at the same time reducing damage roads, and other infrastructure during heavy rains and flooding. Cities partnerships with green corridors, which has allowed testing of litter boom installation in rivers. This project has helped to advance thinking around waste beneficiation program. It is indeed responding to our call to convert waste to economy. The Ola River project, overseen by conservancies in the municipality areas, employs eco-champs to monitor rivers for sewer leaks and other environmental challenges. This project is also responsible for educating neighboring communities about waste management. The permanent catchment rehabilitation projects deal with the difficult interfaces between informal settlement communities and river ecosystems. Furthermore, it brings community, academia, and civil society into a shared governance partnership with our city. The permanent catchment rehabilitation project saved hundreds of lives during the April flood by connecting community leaders to real-time information from the city's focused early warning. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few examples of many initiatives taking place in various parts of our municipality. There is a lot, but if you would have given the man 3 hours, I would have unpacked all of them. So unfortunately, you gave me limited time so that we all share within the very same time. In addition to expanding existing riverine management work, as a municipality, we are fully conscious that we need to move with urgency to resolve the current challenges occasioned by extensive damage to our wastewater treatment. The current state of water quality in many of our rivers and beaches remains a major concern and may hinder the successful implementation of the Transformative River Management Program. But we are also happy to report that we've been assessing the water quality. Some of our beaches were open during the previous weekend because you know that when people come from Joburg, they don't have ocean there. So when they are here and limit access to your ocean, they rather collect their go back. So it's important that you respond to their taste that they want to swim. But we were certain that the qualities and the assurance of our water quality was also given. At the same time, the health well-being of our residents and economy is negatively affected by the continuing contamination of our water. However, we believe the strong partnership we have established with various stakeholders who are present today, the city will be able to achieve its goals. In this regard, our municipality has been fortunate to have a long-standing relationship with the C40 Cities Climate Change Leadership Group and has built on this partnership with the C40 Cities Finance Facility. This has accelerated the implementation of Transformative River Management Program. Combat Ravi, when I arrived here, not even a week on my arrival, that lady seated there called Tomé Tengwa. They flooded my office. Mr. Mayor, we are welcome, and now you are the champion of climate change. I was still familiarizing myself with the office. But I accepted it. When women talk, there's nothing we can do. So I had to respond to that positively. And I really appreciate the support they've been giving me as local principal of this city. We've been playing a very critical role in Africa and also influence discussions at an international level. This has also accelerated this program we are talking about. That relationship on its own, it enabled us to implement most of these programs. We are also excited about the new partnership that are being developed with the French Agency for International Development, the AFD, which will implement a detailed plan on key river catchments, with a study supported through the Cities and Climate in Africa Facility for Adaptation in African cities, co-funded by the Swiss Corporation and the European Union. We continue to be inspired by the work that is happening at the level of NGOs, community, academia, the researches that are conducted in the private sector. We really welcome their intervention. This work provides innovation and new ideas for models for implementation that will be critical if the transformative river program is to be upscaled. Ladies and gentlemen, we call upon you to continue to work with us in the adaptation space. We also look forward to the opportunities this transformative river management program presents to reduce future risks and to set an example to other cities on how we can build climate resilient cities. Let us continue to work together to make EThekwini the most caring and livable city by 2030. I thank you. You are all welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you that the balance of the sexes in our society is important, and women's voice must be heard. And when leaders, then things come right. I grew up in a family of 12. I was the ninth child, and there were 7 sisters and a mother. There was discipline. Things worked when the women spoke. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for those words of welcome, but also reiterating your commitment to being a champion for climate change, because I firmly believe that the program we are handing over today, the mayor would be taking it to our neighbors, to our neighbors in our country, our neighbors in Lesotho, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and our mayor is work with them, because a river doesn't know a border, and I think we've got to really work with our, because if your neighbors are healthy and strong, it helps you as well. So thanks for those words, Mr. Mayor. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next address is by one of our strategic partners from the German embassy in Pretoria, from the German government and the German people, who have been a very important partner in giving us both material and intellectual resources through the other partners in this program. And I'd really like to now welcome on stage Mr. Christian Groen, who's a development counselor for GIZ, which is our strategic partner in this program. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Mr. Program Director. To the KZN Provincial Government MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Mr. Pillay. Good to see you again. Your Worship, the Mayor, Councillor Kaunda, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you very much for welcoming us. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, Sawubona and Moweni. Thank you very much for welcoming me, and please allow me to stand on the protocol as so aptly established by His Worship the Mayor. My name is Christian Grün. I'm Head of Cooperation at the German Embassy in Pretoria, and as such, overseeing a number of bilateral and actual regional and multilateral development cooperation programs together with the Republic of South Africa. And I'm very happy to be here in EThekwini today. And it is my distinct honor to represent my government and, in fact, the people of Germany at this handover event for the EThekwini Transformative River Management Program. But before I proceed, Honorable Mayor, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge your government's and indeed civil society's humanitarian efforts in the recovery and the rebuilding efforts following the devastating floods in some parts of the country, especially here in KwaZulu-Natal. Our solidarity goes to all those who have lost families, who have lost family members, lost their homes and other essential possessions. In fact, I'm very happy that a first tranche of financial support by the German Embassy to rebuild water infrastructure to schools via gift of the givers has been dispersed earlier this week. As German Development Cooperation, ladies and gentlemen, we remain committed to supporting the efforts of the presidency and the whole of government of South Africa and its society in achieving the Agenda 2030 goals certainly the vision of the National Development Plan and other related planning and development frameworks. These goals are ultimately aimed at addressing the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment in South Africa and beyond. To achieve these goals in South Africa, but also beyond, governments all over the world must work in partnerships to implement a socio-economic transformation development agenda aimed at addressing the drivers of social injustice, of inequalities, of structural poverty, of unemployment, and of energy and climate challenges. The Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015 at COP21 in Paris, and a lot has happened since then, with probably the biggest interrupter being the corona pandemic and its dramatic consequences on societies and economies worldwide. Climate change and its adverse effects has not stopped, and it still poses an existential threat to mankind, as we saw with the devastating floods in this region in April, and as we saw in Germany as well last year with a similarly devastating flood occurrence. Therefore, I believe the relevance and the significance of the Paris Agreement and its implementation remains unchanged in its role to unify its signatories in agreeing to the goal of significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions due to rising temperatures and meeting the challenges of mitigating its effects. But please allow me to share with you a little story about Paris COP21 that links directly to today's TRMP handover event. A few months before COP21, two highly enterprising young development cooperation professionals had begun working on a grandly innovative project. They were, by name, Mr. James Alexander, a Scotsman with the C40 coalition of 100 plus big cities, and Mr. Martin De, a Rhinelander with GIZ. These two young gentlemen came up with a concept for what is today called the C40 Cities Finance Facility, or the CFF, that would meet the critical need to link municipalities with climate finance so as to be able to accelerate implementation of the Paris Agreement on the ground. After securing the support of the German government and working tirelessly to find co-financing, they were eventually able to persuade USAID and other international partners, and eventually adding many, many more. In the first phase, the CFF supported Bogota and Mexico City in Latin America, and in the second round, the Durban project. This project was rapidly upscaled in its first 4 weeks from being initially a cost-benefit analysis of stream cleaning program to becoming what it is now, a mega project to transform, as the mayor said, more than 7,000 kilometers of rivers and streams at a cost of 7 billion rand over a period of 10 years. Therefore, I believe we can see how one innovation can lead to multiple innovations in a snowball and a positive snowballing effect. Despite the massive challenges climate change poses to livelihoods, we should also look at the opportunities, I believe, and this is one of those opportunities. Now can be the time to boost issues such as just energy transition and to foster a green recovery of the overall economy. Building back better, as we have coined it fittingly in the development community. This entails building a successful economy whilst at the same time demonstrating inclusivity, which means to create and sustain jobs, as well as tackling the climate crisis. Within the German government, I can say there has been several moves towards supporting a sustainable or a green recovery, mainly to support the EU efforts on the European Green Deal and how to bring that into practice. However, and I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that South Africa in its own right has been a forerunner of an inclusive green economy movement, and we very much welcome its continued effort as expressed in the newly released Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, pointing at the necessary transformation towards an inclusive, digital, green, sustainable, and low-carbon, climate-resilient economy. Therefore, it is very heartening to note that the TRMP will eventually grow the green and circular economy in the process of adaptation to create permanent jobs, to grow community enterprises, and to build recycling value chains. I would also like to acknowledge, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that South Africa is currently showing a lot of momentum with regards to further developing its climate policies, such as the Presidential Climate Change Commission, the National Climate Change Bill, the National Low Emission Development Strategy, as recently communicated to the UNFCCC, and the adoption of the National Adaptation Strategy. This is a notable achievement by taking into consideration the tremendous impacts of the COVID crisis on South Africa's economy and society. We also welcome South Africa's updated nationally determined contributions, the NDC, which are in line with the Paris Agreement, and we are looking forward to supporting and further supporting its implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to use this opportunity to acknowledge the long-lasting and long-standing cooperation of Germany and South Africa in the field of environmental protection and climate change. There is a large portfolio of projects in this field, ranging from energy to ecosystem issues, and there's a wide range of actors and partners. The TRMP, the reason why we are here today, certainly exemplifies this bilateral cooperation and is a shining example for climate adaptation globally. It embraces a paradigm shift in the valuation of natural resources and how maintenance of our rivers brings ecosystem benefits that exceed the costs. This means using nature-based solutions and ecological infrastructure to solve challenges of flooding and urban surface water systems, and the recognition of natural infrastructure as an asset that requires the same level of maintenance as grey infrastructure. Another innovation is to use a partnership-based approach to riverine management and adaptation and the funding thereof. And we welcome the role of IFD and the CICLIA funding in taking this concept forward. The outcome of the TRMP has been a suite of products from vision to analysis and detailed implementation that can be benchmarked with the best in the world in transformative adaptation. I believe within EThekwini, there's now a clear and implementable solution for the devastating floods of April 2022, a bankable business case, and a clear plan for raising the required funding over the next 10 years. The TRMP has generated a groundswell of transformative river management across South Africa. Through the City Finance Facility, the TRMP is currently being upscaled in Cape Town, with an eventual rollout of another 2,000 kilometers of rivers and streams. The project will kick off with key catchments in highly distressed parts of the city, and it is likely to involve a process of aggressive re-engineering in favor of ecological infrastructure. Secondly, the TRMP is being rolled out in the EThekwini Municipality in Mpumalanga region through the GIZ Gap Fund, which will involve the Crocodile River and its tributaries. I understand that the innovation snowball effect is proceeding, and work has begun on a national transformative river adaptation community of practice with the GIZ Climate Support Program, now initiating discussions with key national stakeholders. Your Worship, the Mayor, we salute you for your civic and global climate leadership, and we wish you well, and in what will no doubt continue to be a stellar role in the African constellation of the C40 cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grun, the German Embassy, our strategic partner in this very important program. And thank you for those words of encouragement, and very importantly, thank you for the partnership and the support for the project, for the program, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to call up our MEC, our provincial champion for environmental affairs, tourism and economic development, MEC Ravi Pillay, and he will come and address us from a provincial perspective. MEC, let's give a round of applause to the MEC.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Eric Appelgren, our Mayor, who has given us a very warm welcome in an inimitable way, the representative of the German government, Mr. Christian Grun, who just addressed us, they're really testing the eyes of the print you have on your Mr. Hastings Chikoko, who's the Managing Director of Regions, Mr. Jeff Tooley from EThekwini Municipality, and Ms. Zoe Ramondo, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who I'm sure you're going to hear from them later on. Let me recognize also other members of the diplomatic corps who are present, very importantly, representatives of civil society and NGOs who have, in many ways, we have to acknowledge, have been bigger of this program than government in this. And I would like to think that they are going to continue and add even more energy, and the partnership is going to grow much, much stronger. So, ladies and gentlemen, I see some Mr. Tony Carney there for my eyesight is recognized, is working with members of the media, but also an environmental activist and champion in his own right. Thank you for this opportunity. Firstly, let me apologize for the Premier, Mr. Sihle Zikalala, who was supposed to be here, and he asked me to please represent him and convey a message on his behalf. I think until 10:30 this morning, he was still scheduled to be here. But when you hold the kind of office he does, things crop up. Yeah, let me leave it there, because if I might be Kaunda will understand when I say what matters of Isilo we can't talk too freely about. So it gives me great pleasure to address you on this milestone occasion of the handover of the Transformative Riverine Management Program of the city of EThekwini. I think as provincial government, we're extremely proud of this milestone, which can be so understated, designed to improve river health whilst creating much needed job opportunities and simultaneously protecting the environment generally. Now, it can never be cliche to speak about the floods that we've had. And many of you would have been at the front line of that experience, having to deal with 450 lives lost, 458, I think the number is, of which 85 are still, in addition to which 85 or 88, it's now 85 have not been recovered. 7,000 homes seriously damaged, another 6,000 partially damaged. And of course, the damaged infrastructure, water, electricity, roads, bridges, sanitation, which I'm glad you mentioned that, Mayor, because I need to throw some challenges, targets to you on that particular front. Telecommunications. And when you think about it, that in the day after going into the second day and even the third day, 75% of infrastructure was knocked out. 75% of the areas in the EThekwini did not have water or electricity or these sanitation working. And we're now at a situation where we'd like about, on average, 90% recovered. And despite all the understandable grievances and complaints, let's pay tribute to those who worked systematically to have that recovery from 30% on average to now sitting at 90%, because it was achieved with facing some very, very serious challenges. Let's give them a round of applause. Of course, there's still areas like Tongaat with regard to water. I think on Saturday they'll be officially opening the bridge, which was also built as a partnership between the provincial government in EThekwini and the community. Again, reflective. And I think if there's any lesson that we must take, or new way of doing things that we must entrench and internalize, is this partnership between government, civil society, and all levels of formations. It's a powerful energy that can be released, and which has been demonstrated in many, many instances. The draft provincial climate change strategy has water resources as one of its adaptation sectors. And in this sector, there's a program aimed at strengthening water conservation, water demand management, and water resources management. And of course, our actions within this program is to seek to design and implement a provincial water resources management and protection program. So the work that you are doing is going to add that real value to its content. But water demand management is increasingly becoming a crisis. Mayor will talk authoritatively on the EThekwini, which I also keep a fairly close eye on. But just to give you some numbers on something that we very recently exposed to last week in the Ugu district. And of course, we're trying to give a provincial perspective also for the donors to not only think of EThekwini, and Ugu is, of course, my hometown as well. But let me declare that. So in looking at the demand, water demand in Ugu, there's a demand of 200 megaliters a day, 200 million liters of water a day. Capacity of the system that's there at the moment is for 130 megaliters. So you immediately have a supply-demand problem. In addition to that, we confess our operations and maintenance systems are not the best, and there's aging infrastructure and historic lack of investment in operations and maintenance, all of which is acknowledged trying to deal with. So the result of that lack of maintenance is that the water losses are at a very high level, can be at least 30% and sometimes about 45% across the province. So how do you manage water demand in that context while you are rebuilding, I think is a key challenge. There's a number of details around that, which is not the occasion to go through, but I'm just putting it there that it has to be part of the conservation. Not just from an international perspective on the conservation of water, but also from your local conditions and demanding that we do so. So this Transformative Riverine Management Program is indeed a critically valuable part of our water resources protection regime. Over the past 9 years, the University of KwaZulu-Natal, working with the EThekwini Metro, the Quarry Road informal settlement residents, and other stakeholders, I think they've worked with 35 community-based researchers and co-produced knowledge with UK's and excuse me, in the following areas. Is Prof. Kathy? Oh, she had flu today. Okay, she's legitimate reason, but I mean, I was exposed to her work in the Quarry Road informal settlement, and it was really quite amazing. So they were doing work in the following areas: baseline data, history and geography of the settlement, engagement in the Palmead Catchment Rehabilitation Project, community-based and participatory GIS mapping. So let's demystify this technology and take it down so people can use it and participation in development of Durban's resilience strategy, risk mapping, development of a climate smart informal settlement handbook, exploring the narratives of home in informal settlements. And perhaps if there's time, I'll say a little bit more. Innovation, sanitation technologies, Gates Foundation's Reinvent the Toilet Challenge, and community-based early flood warning. So they've taken this down to ground level and worked with people. The practical side of it was seen, and Mayor, you've been there many times, I'm sure. And when you go there where the rivers and the two bridges almost adjacent to each other, and the river changed its course because the debris came and blocked the natural path of the river under the bridge between the pillars, and it took a wide swath and wiped out 400 informal homes. 400. Not a single life was lost. It's not quite true. There was one life lost, but that was because of an electrocution through an illegal connection. but nobody died because they drowned and were caught in the flood waters. And that's because of the very simple, I'm sure somebody's going to talk about that soon, of how they developed this network and early warning system. And with simple WhatsApp technology, kept track, measured the levels of the water, and knew which were the particular trigger points for different kinds of action. But the elephant in the room, as EThekwini is concerned, as far as flood water management is in the main is concerned, is the reality of the settlement on low-lying areas of riverbanks. And it's a complex challenge which we've got to grapple with and find solutions. Because it's not like you say government will just provide the land, which is part of the equation. But the problem is, A, people settled there because they wanted to be near economic opportunity. Secondly, that land was left undeveloped because it was not suitable for development. And that's why it was never developed over the years. So you got that contradiction. So if you look for suitable land, you're generally having to look, well, there are a few bits and pieces within suburbs and so on, and then you get your not in my backyard syndrome, which we have to deal with. But otherwise, the larger pieces of land are some distance away. So that becomes linked to an efficient transport system in order to make the equation work, so to speak. Within that context that we're going to live in settlements for some time, how do we have safety measures of the kind that Professor Sutherland and the team are working with? But how do you really take this conversation of home informal settlement? How can it be reorganized in a way where there's a basic levels of quality of life, services, of course, but level of organization in terms of a basic layout? We used to call it reblocking. You take an informal settlement and you reblock it so that you give it some level of organization. So that requires very strong social facilitation, because you have interest. You have shack lords, you have illegal electricity suppliers, you have young people who are unemployed and therefore subject to other influences. So the facilitation part of that work becomes very, very important. So through your program, the Transformative Riverine Management Program, the quality and quantity of our water, this is some evidence that's emerging, in over 4,000 kilometers rivers network within the metro has in fact improved. Of course, we're still going to talk about your sewer system, Mayor Kaunda. But that work, there's been scientific evidence that's emerged that it has provided a significant improvement. So we want to thank you and encourage you to continue to do with that. I mean, the plastic pollution is something that's just so overwhelming. Face it, when you go to the mouth of the Mgeni River on regular occasions and see the volumes that's come out there. There's another young lady, what cares, was running an organization. I don't think she's here, but she's quite passionate about it. But Mayor, let me be honest, I think there's a distance that developed and they get angry because when we went there and had a program there, together with the national minister in partnership with the municipality, we were able to mobilize the resources and the yellow plant, the trucks, and the what you call it, the caterpillars or other kinds of equipment. And she came, but then was angry because they've been battling for years to marshal this kind of equipment in the work that they're doing regularly. So I think building that partnership and having that working relationship becomes quite critical to a sustained, successful program. And just imagine marine plastic debris causes such significant economic damage to industries and communities. Estimated costs ranging between 8 billion US dollars, according to Reynard in 2014, to 2,500 billion US dollar, according to Bowman et al. In 2019. Of course, these are international figures, but they are still huge. I mean, those are huge. So it is this understanding that made my department make a very small contribution of 5.5 million rand to support the TRMP project at Indumeni local municipality. So I can't only worry about EThekwini. Ugu district municipality, the Mzimamai River, and Kwaduguza local municipality, the Mavivane River, in the last financial year. And I hope that officials from the three municipalities have been invited, because we want to encourage them to have a strong partnership with the EThekwini municipalities, because you're setting the bar, Mayor. You're setting the benchmark, and we want them to follow up on it. Let me then go towards conclusion and say that on the 12th of May 2021, in this very venue, at the inaugural meeting of the Climate Change Sustainable Development Council, our Premier delivered the address and made a few remarks. Of course, that summit was held under the theme, working together to achieve green and climate-smart economic recovery. And he said that as KZN, we welcome the news that COP27 will be held on the African soil in Egypt, and that KZN will use the opportunity to galvanize Africa behind the race to zero agenda, while insisting that wealthy nations should fulfill their financial commitments on climate change. I mean, there's so many big issues in space, and let me provoke some among you and say that I have some sympathy for Tasha when he talks about the just transition in dealing with the issue. And when you talk about who contributes what towards this effort, who caused all the problems and who's bearing the biggest brunt of it, in oversimplified terms and perhaps not too diplomatic. But that's a conversation we need to have. So if we have 150 years of reserves of coal and 50,000 miners employed in that industry, surely it's not illegitimate to say, let's have a just transition plan to move away from that. So KZN fully supports the Africa Climate Policy Center, as well as our national government, that post-COVID-19 cannot be seen to be reverting to the pre-COVID era, whose hallmark is business at all costs and environmental degradation. I'm not sure if Tony would have been behind a question sent yesterday. UPL, United Phosphorus Limited. This is that fertilizer manufacturer which had a warehouse at Punubia and Mshlanga. And of course, at the time of the unrest, it was attacked and burnt and caused devastating degradation to the entire system, including the Mshlanga estuary. Okay, the detail of that is a story for another day, but the question related to how far are we in prosecuting, because it was indicated that the Green Scorpions would get involved in prosecution in that matter. So that investigation is not quite complete, but it's being dealt with at a national level in partnership with the National Department and the NPA in determining how that particular matter will be handled. So I'm mentioning that is to say that, in fact, specifically me, I have this portfolio that says economic development, tourism, and environmental affairs. So you can imagine the conflicted position I am put in sometimes. So I have to deal with that. But the point I'm making in this particular case is that there's no gray area for me. If there was wrong things done, if people broke the law, free consequence management, not just for this particular or country as a whole. So let me then conclude with thing which I think Premier would want me to say as well, is that The environmental agenda in our country cannot be looked at beyond without looking at the specific history of our country. And so throughout our long history of colonial conquest, land, imperial, unfettered capitalism, and apartheid oppression in all its facets, political, economic, social, and environmental, the majority of people were systematically denied the sweeter fruits of our God-given planet. The colonial and apartheid blamed erosion on overgrazing. I remember learning in school. No, they don't look after the land, it's overgrazing. There was scarcely thought that the indigenous African people were violently driven from the ancestral land to smaller and smaller and smaller pockets of pasture. 87% of the most fertile and arable land was in the hands of a 13% of the population. So these historic facts are what must come into the equation and not be dealt with in a condescending way that actually promotes action. The quest for climate and environmental justice must empower those who have been historically oppressed, historically marginalized, and historically denied. So in our program of radical economic transformation has to be consideration of environmental justice. And we're quite fortunate that we're in the time when what I call the 21st century economy is, whether it's recycling, waste to energy, and the like, are coming to the fore. And certainly in my department, I'm sure that the mayor's produced a report the other day of a very exciting independent power producing program that I think is going to go out for requests for proposals at the end of this year. And we want all our 7 secondary cities to start looking at that 100 megawatt opportunity, which you can try to implement without having to be licensed. So therein provides, in that value chain, provides a lot of opportunities for economic growth and job creation. So since time immemorial, Africans have cherished the earth, worshipping its rivers and lakes, paying homage to the fruits each season brought. Paying homage to the fruits each season brought. I am South African Indian descent. I am Tamil or Tamil, which comes from the south of India. There you have the Pongal festival, which is exactly the same thing, celebrating the fruits of the season. So an environmental consciousness is an integral part of our being. Interventions like the TRMP must work such that it respects where we are coming from culturally and how it seeks to protect our future. No program conceived by government or donors will have traction among citizens unless everyone is carried along the same journey. TRMP will necessarily be, in many respects, a longer-term project, and we understand that there's no quick fix. We can't not act and let the situation get worse. So what we have today is the thinking and the tools to rein in the crisis. We are happy to join you in this endeavor. Let's grow KwaZulu-Natal together, working to protect the future of our province and our planet. Thank you for listening. May God bless each and every one.
Thank you very much, MEC. You've given us a lot of food for thought and issues that we need to consider on this very important journey now that the handover is happening here today. And I think our colleagues take a note, and we'll make sure that what you, Christian, and the mayor have spoken to us about today, that us as officials, we are responsible now to carry the baton and make sure we act on what you have made us think about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the first part of the afternoon's program. We're going to have a little bit of comfort break. We're into a starter now, a little snack to get your appetite ready for the main course. But ladies and gentlemen, so the starter will be served, and we're going to be entertained. And you know, it's always important when you deal with very important environment. Don't leave out the creative people, like poets, musicians, artists. they help express it in a more interesting way, what we say in a lot of big words. While the start is being served, where is Tando Food? Tando will be coming and inspiring us and shocking us, waking us up. Tando is a poet, a young poet, and she's on our program now. But starters will be served. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a 15-minute break and we'll be entertained by Tando with poetry. Tando, the microphone is yours. I'll go off the stage. I say poetry, people will not listen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was very surprised to get a call about this event because coincidentally, I'm currently working with a team of filmmakers on a documentary addressing the same issue. I guess when you're meant to be part of change. Did you know that when put together, South African rivers could stretch around the world 4 times over and still make it back home? Incredible. Yet rivers still remain humble with all that magic in their depth. And I know, even on their worst days, if they wanted to, they could travel the world, but they've chosen to devote themselves to making things grow. Look at the trees glow. Blown about in spectacular shimmer, the splendor of a colony of lush green, the grass sweeps across the riverbanks. And did you know that rivers didn't have to be sea for us to love them, even though they could be? And then they did. Rivers showed off when they flowed into the estuary and came out to ocean, as if having steeped and then cascaded down towering mountains in splendid fall wasn't magnificent enough. Have you seen the effortlessness of the beauty of rivers? All clear water and gentle current. But we, humans, so insistent on teaching rivers lessons they taught us. The trees that they've watered for centuries shed their leaves in the fall and still stand. Wisdom is knowing that spring too will come and their leaves will sprout anew. Even though they've lost their trunks to the axe, just for us to read and write, our stubbornness will not let us learn to let go before we pray for abundance. We have always had everything we ever needed. But we, humans, so full on feast already, have chosen to enjoy the fruit and lose the seed. This does not teach us anything about roots, does not teach us anything about tending the soil the rivers flow under. We have learned nothing from dusk, how she spends moments with dawn to birth, a glorious morning just so we can bask under the different hues of the sky as the day goes. We know nothing about being neighborly. We have learned nothing from the whispers of the sky to the ocean when they gossip about the serene nature of the shores. Some days, rivers spill into the sea just to feel what it's like to steal a kiss from the rocks. They have never had anything to lose but everything to give to us. And we, humans, came with our obsession to own, to build borders, so prone to go over things that we're never competing with. No wonder that we've begun hunting each other. And we, humans, would rather pay to commute, to marvel at backyards that boast beautiful lakes, would rather build unreal worlds, pools in backyards just to prove that we can ruin everything. Then cry drought, cry wolf, cry a river, and still bite the hand that's fed us for centuries. Silly. How could we save anything if we couldn't save the 70% of water in our own body? Why would we save rivers? Mere rivers choking on litter. Murky from all our scattered filth, then turn and blame rivers when they begin to spill over and flood us. Do not blame the sinkholes, landslides, or making room to grow because we have messed up everything. How else are rivers meant to show rage? Show what disgust we are at our big age? Tell us that they are tired of being sought by humans who do not deserve anything they have given us. And we humans need to do better. Put a little love there where nature is. Show a little tenderness to what's given to us. Give a little care to the source. Be the nurturers we have always been. Still waters run everywhere. Ask the deserts where the mirages are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thando. We'll make sure that it's scripted into the report of this event today. Ladies and gentlemen, please just sit back, relax, and please have your starter and the network. And I'll say in about 10 we'll get the second part of the program, and that'll be the last part of the program. Thank you very much.